Well, all of our films that we've done are passion projects. You know, when you work at this level and you write and direct and produce and do a lot of the jobs yourself or within that small team you have, you know, everything you do is something that you're driven to do. You're not being mandated by anybody else to make, you know, a certain film or to do it in a certain way. And the idea behind this was really inspired from watching the 1960s and 70s Hammer and Amicus horror films. Those were films that I grew up watching, and I think the basis for Legend of Demoniac was to take that idea, that sort of vintage classical film, and then bring that into a modern day setting, but keeping in tone with sort of the classical way of telling a horror story.
Ian approached me. We talk a lot on the phone, and he had concocted this character. He had this character in mind, and he said that he had written this with me in mind, and it was a bit of a rough character. It made perfect sense, but together the two of us really forged and created this character. As Ian told me about it, I had a certain way that I pictured Demoniac delivering the lines, and it really all came together. It was a mutual effort, and it really came together and it worked out. Demoniac was really a lot of fun to play, and is quite honestly my favorite character that I've played to date.
All right, well, after me and Ian kind of come up with the story and we had talked about it a little bit, Ian had started writing it, and we got together in a production meeting and kind of started to decide what actors we were going to find to fill some of these roles. And when it come to Vernon Coyle, we couldn't think of anybody any better than Mark Dessauer. We had worked with him before. He's a wonderful guy to work with, and we kind of pictured him as our Vernon Coyle.
This is my second film with Moonlight Films. I'm very excited to be a part of this and part of their group again. Worked with them on Graveyard Stories, on one of their vignettes, working with CA again, and apparently I didn't piss them off too much because they invited me to be a part of this film, which I'm very excited to contribute my talents to. Hopefully in the future they can use me again.
It's cool because in now today's day and age, it doesn't matter if you're a broke film company or not. It's all lighting, sound, and what you do with what you got and the script. And yeah, you may not have the best tripod on the market, you may not have the best camera on the market, but it's the way that you use them, and I think that's the trick. And so Moonlight Films comes across as not the brokest film company out there, because it's not like just these guys that get a bunch of buddies in their backyard and say, let's shoot a movie this weekend. So.
Well, one thing that was really important to me as we were working on the film was I knew we couldn't make it a period piece because being a low-budget film studio, we don't have the capabilities of pulling off a period drama. But what we did do was to cut out pretty much any technology you can think of to really not peg a certain time period. Obviously, some of the vehicles you can't get around that, but you know, we use landline phones. You don't see cell phones. You don't see laptops or tablets or anything like that. Nothing very fancy. That way the film doesn't date itself. So whether someone is watching it now or in 25 years, you know, the movie seems kind of timeless.
A lot of times it came in bits and pieces as far as the script is concerned. And I would get into that character. I would read those lines. I tried to remember those lines. I modified those lines. I didn't want compound words. So I would break up don't into do not. And I would walk around here for days saying these lines. It would not be uncommon for my wife to step outside into the garage, which was my sanctuary, and ask who I'm talking to, and why are you talking that way, and so she quickly adapted. I quickly adapted, and I found myself doing this nightly, As we approached a scene, I would do this. I had about an hour drive to location most of the time, and I talked to myself the entire time.
Alice is a young college student. She's studying art, design, and decor. She's very passionate about what she's studying and what she does. But she's kind of on the run because she has just gotten out of an abusive relationship, and she doesn't really have any family around where she is, and so she's kind of looking for a new start. And so she comes across this job opportunity, which she ends up taking, and I won't spill too much, so you gotta stay tuned, but it feels like a new start to her, but she's still kind of in that vulnerable state of mind, and looking for somebody, you know, who can, you know, treat her nicely, you know, at least. And so I think she gets wrapped up in some things that she thinks might be good, and like I said, she's in kind of a vulnerable state of mind, but I don't want to spill too much, but you'll have to stay tuned. But ultimately, she's kind of just looking for her strength again, and you'll have to see how she discovers that, or if she does.
Well, my character is Professor Vernon Coyle. He turns out to be a reluctant demon hunter. He's a professor of the paranormal. He's an academic. He's not a field guy, but in the course of the movie, he is drawn into the field reluctantly because of various circumstances to hunt this demon. And he's not very comfortable at first, but he finds the courage.
My character in Demoniac is Blair, and she gets her start in 1878 with her dad in this little cabin. They hear noise, so they, go out to look and investigate it, and that's when she meets Demoniac. So then, 100 or so years later, he, decides that he wants a new bride, and that's where it starts to cause problems for my character because I get a little jealous there through the movie. So it's kind of interesting just to see the different dynamics that she has with her sister wives, who she apparently isn't jealous of, and then now she's super mad about this Kate.
So my character is a watcher with apparently many years of experience in paranormal supernatural, and his good buddy Coyle decides to come to him for help on a strange case that he's working on.
The makeup was it was a lot of fun doing the makeup, and I mean I don't think time was a big factor. I mean we always had other stuff going on when I was doing the makeup, so then we could just go straight into with CA's scenes. But I think heat was a factor. We filmed pretty much all his stuff in the summer, and it's really hot and humid in southern Indiana, so and we were in buildings, and it was that was the challenge, is that you'd get the makeup on, you get it set the way you wanted it, and it would look great. And as the day would go on, and it would start to sort of melt.
Wow. Well, to begin with, we had planned on, and Ian had mentioned to me when he approached me with this, that we would be shooting this in the fall. The makeup was a battle from start to finish. Darren did a fantastic job, and he did an excellent job of repeating the makeup. The makeup was right at an hour to put on, and Darren and I would go back and forth, and it was all very lighthearted conversation. He would take subtle jabs at me about whatever, and the whole time I'm trying to get into character as he's putting this makeup on, and the makeup actually helped to get into character. And really, when that makeup was fully applied, that's when I could get into Demoniac.
Let her go. Ooh, frightening, really. I admire your courage.
I'm beginning to admire it myself.
Well, we're trying to get CA here ready for his scenes for the day, and we're getting his Demoniac makeup on. We're trying to match it as close as we can from, to match the last shot, which has been a while.
We had just recently seen some publicity shots that Scott Tepperman and Jim O'Rear had released on a new movie they were working on, and we noticed in the publicity shots that the location they were shooting at was just awesome. So we reached out to Jim to see if we could find out kind of where it was and if it was available to shoot there. And Jim told us that, it was Ashmore Estates, and put us in touch with Rob and Terry, the owner of it. And he was pretty booked up as far as wanting to shoot there if we wanted to. The only day he really had available was in the middle of July. And after looking at Ashmore, taking a trip over there, we'd kind of settled in that it was definitely a location that we wanted to use in Demoniac. So we pretty much had to take that day in July, and that's kind of what jump-started us and having to start this in the middle of summer.
We had some really outstanding locations in this film. Frightmare's Haunted House once again allowed us to use a couple of their rooms for different scenes in the picture. Willard Library in Evansville and the great Greg Hager allowed us to use a really beautiful room there in the library. And the library is allegedly haunted, so it was cool to have sort of that story, ingrained in the film. And then a majority of the early section of the film takes place in a building just right down the street in the town where Moonlight is really based out of, Carnegie Heritage Arts Center, which is was run by a lady named Donna Klusner. And Donna Klusner was just a very, very kind person, and she loved the arts, and she loved the town of Linton, and she was a wonderful grandmother. And unfortunately, before the film came out, we did lose Donna, and it was a very sad turn of events. But what I think is neat about having the Carnegie in the building, not only is it a beautiful building, but the fact that Donna's memory can sort of be preserved in the film, because this building and this gallery that she worked so hard to get going and to keep up, is featured in this film as well as in Graveyard Stories. So we would like to think that she would have got a kick out of seeing those buildings, in a film. So it was very cool to get to work not only in the building but with her to get all that set in motion.
What it was like working on set with CA and Mark and all the other actors, it was so much fun. Even with such serious material and sometimes very serious scenes, we all had so much fun doing it, and everybody was all about just putting in everything they have and getting grimy and dirty, and that's how you make a great scene. And it was just so much fun working with everyone, bouncing ideas off of each other, and you can always learn something from other actors. And so it was really fun to hear about their experiences and learn from them too. So it was so much fun, and I'm glad to have met them. I hope to work with them again soon.
Well, when we were thinking about this movie, we kind of thought this was going to be a fall project, but as kind of fates collided, this quickly became a summer project and ended up being probably one of the most hottest movies we had ever shot. So it was kind of interesting to have to deal with the heat and the fact that we used a lot of vintage locations. And back when these buildings were built, air conditioning was not one of their top priorities. So most of the buildings that we actually shot in this movie actually didn't have any air conditioning either. So it really didn't matter if we were outside or inside. Heat was a constant problem, not only for the cameras that were constantly fogging up. We had other equipment keeping the actors hydrated and cool and happy. And give it up for Darren for having to constantly work on CA's makeup as Demoniac, because with the non-stop sweat and all that, it was miserable for him.
The Willard Library is awesome. I hear it's haunted, which probably is. I think every old building is. And oh wait, there's something there. No, that wasn't paranormal. Look, everyone looked though. But it's a cool old building. I love the old building. It's I like any kind of set that is kind of its own character, and I think the library is its own character. Mark, on the other hand, is a complete asshole. Pain in the ass diva. He came in wondering why his bras and slips had not been pressed properly. And
So the group for this movie was really fun because I had my sister wives who were really exciting to work with. From making our costumes and our makeup to interacting with each other. It was really fun. Brian is always so much fun to work with. He's very fun. He makes it interesting. He keeps you on your toes with all his jokes and behind the scene chatter. But then he always brings in a really good scene and character. CA, of course, I just love working with him. He's so much fun. And I feel like as Demoniac, he did a really good job being that kind of overbearing, creepy kind of character. And it was really easy to work with him because he makes you feel comfortable. So when he's in your face and you have to be crawling at his feet, he doesn't make you feel awkward about it. So that's really nice.
Even though I didn't act in this film, I feel like I put more time and work in this film just because there was with like the makeup, obviously, and that took a long time, and then coming up with blood effects and building props and we had a lot of considerable amount of blood in this film, and I crafted some prop knives and sort of a blood bag rig that. Attached around the actress, and then so there was a lot of building of props and making sure that they were going to work, along with the makeup, along with the continuity, and just kicking around ideas with Ian and story-wise and even shots. I mean, we would be out on location and I'd say, hey, what if we set up and shoot through that? That'll look cool, So I really was really busy with this film. A lot of time invested. And I think the final product's going to show, because I think it's our best film, and I know it's our best film, and I think the finished product is going to look really good, and I hope everybody enjoys it. So
I think the only thing that I would really add to this is it's just amazing working with Moonlight Films. Everybody, James, Ian, Darren, Tara, the entire core group is just amazing to work with. I would do it forever.